If you look at 2022 to 2023, part of 2024, I would say that everybody was experimenting. It's almost like a worldwide hackathon with AI. What do you see in a typical hackathon? Out of 100 ideas, maybe there are 4 or 5 that really are cut above the others. The same thing was happening with AI. The whole world is trying this thing. Technology was also evolving super fast. So some things were working, some things were not working. But in the last, I would say this year especially, the conversations began to shift in the industry, which is, hey, how do I go from these fancy looking demos? How do I actually translate that into an economic outcome? Some parts of the work spectrum actually benefited faster than others. Customer experience functions, there is more progress. But not everywhere did we see the magic yet. And that's because the complexity of these tasks is very different. And the amount of risk you can take is also different. AI inherently is stochastic in nature. So there is a lot of angles around this problem. And that's why the industry is now, okay, let's take a step back and focus really on use cases that have ROI, that have measured outcomes so that there is an economic outcome. I call it AI with ROI.
If agentic AI still feels more like a concept than a capability, you're not alone. The promise has been huge: autonomous systems that act, reason, and make business decisions. But for most companies, the reality has fallen short. Tools that looked great in demos struggle to scale, and the ROI isn't showing up fast enough. Today, we're breaking down why that gap exists and what it takes to close it. Welcome back to IT Visionaries. I'm your host, Chris Brandt, and today my guest is Sumeet Arora, Chief Development Officer at Teradata. Sumeet has spent his career helping enterprises turn data into decisions. Now he's leading Teradata's shift from a data platform to a knowledge platform, building the next generation of AI-driven autonomous companies. He's here to talk about what's missing in the agentic AI promise, how to fix it, and why the future of AI is as much about people as it is about code. Sumeet, welcome to the show.
Chris, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me here.
Great to have you. And like that, I think the last thing I said in the introduction and why the future of AI is as much about people as it is about code, I think is such an important piece to it. But before we dig right into that, where are we at with agentic AI now? I mean, there's half the people out there say we are in a massive AI hype bubble, and the other are like, oh my God, it's hyper useful right now. Where do we sit?
I think both are true, Chris.
Yeah.
There is definitely a gap between the promise and actual deployment, for sure.
Yeah.
Actual results at scale. There is definitely a big gap, but there is also the reality that this technology is real, and there is the promise is real, and we are underway in terms of bringing it online, but a lot of work has to be done.
So I think what we saw originally, there was just so much excitement about AI. I mean, first of all, I will say that I've never seen a more transformative thing hit tech in probably my career, honestly, even including the web, But I think, when it first rolled out, enterprises had this, really big idea of it's going to fix everything. We're going to replace all these workers. I mean, we keep hearing this, even just today or yesterday, Amazon laid off all those workers. And then, they're like, well, it's all about AI. And I think that was more about them finding the budget to buy GPUs than it was actually not needing the people. But that's a whole different discussion. But I think, there's something about it. I don't know that the ones that rushed in, and I think most of them probably rushed in with Copilot, right? I don't think most of them really saw the advantage. And I think that, we saw a lot of people jumping into RAG models and things like that and trying to figure that out. And I don't know that kind of got them to where they were hoping to get either. So what's the reality? What's been overpromised, overhyped, underdelivered? What was not working? And then let's talk about what is working.
Yeah. I think Chris, maybe we can take a step back.
Sure.
So for the first time, we have technology that actually has reasoning abilities. has the ability to reason like a human would. When you and I, humans, I mean, this is the concept of the agents, right? Which is just like humans, agents have perception. They have the ability to make decisions. They have memory. And then they have the ability to take actions. And that ability to make those decisions and have memory is in technology is relatively new, and that's a big change. So what is actually underway is a redesign of the human technology interface itself, right? So we have had like decades of humans leveraging technology delivering the workflows, humans using it through a user interface that is designed primarily for humans, and it's basically an automation augmentation situation where we still are in command, right? The humans are in full command. Now you have a technology that has the promise of going further into that realm and saying, hey, look, I can probably make the decisions as well.
Mhm.
I can do the reasoning. I can look at the stuff and make the decisions that you are making, dear human. And why don't we? Why? So the question is, when you do a fundamental redesign of how everything operates, you have to understand it takes time also, right?
Yeah.
You have all these planes flying, and in that moment, you're also saying, "Hey, I have this magic box." I think the short answer to your question actually is the initial thing was, "Here is a magic box, and it's going to do everything for you," right? Which is
Right.
kind of not true,
Silly.
right? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
the AI of 2022 November and the AI of today is already very different. It's moved so
Very different.
fast, right? Very, very different, right? So the point is, this thing is moving really fast. It has the right promise. It has the promise of going into domains where technology did not go before. But then the other part is the entire system needs to change to work with this, right? And I kind of say that, hey, the whole world needs to evolve from a technology interface that was workflow centric to a technology interface that is outcome centric,
Mhm.
with humans asking technology to deliver on outcomes and then playing that. But this design of the human AI system is what is taking time. Now, that's a very, very high level, taking a step back answer to that question, Chris, but we can dive deeper.
Yeah, and I think to your point, just 3 years ago, we weren't even having these conversations, right?
Yeah,
I mean, the amount of advancement that we've seen in such a short time, that's what I'm saying. Like, I've never seen anything quite like it.
oh yeah.
So yeah, I mean, like, I'm one of those people who have like unrealistic expectations of something that's changing so incredibly rapidly, and in fact, I think that's one of the problems with it today is like it is changing so rapidly. It is kind of hard to work with it.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like sometimes Anthropic changes every single day, and like what worked one day does not work the next day. I mean,
Absolutely.
it's the pace of changes is crazy, and I think.
Yeah.
We all have to, like, you're right, step back and have some rational thoughts about what that means.
Yeah.
But like, what do you see as sort of like the state of the industry right now in terms of like what are some of the design patterns that are working, with regard to this human AI sort of interface? Where do you see that going?
Yeah. I think the first thing is, if you look at 2022 to 2023, part of 2024, I would say that everybody was experimenting. It's almost like a worldwide hackathon with AI, right? And what do you see in a typical hackathon? What you see in a typical hackathon is that out of 100 ideas, maybe there are four or five that really are cut above the others, and you say, hey, these we should invest, these should become product. This is like just traditional hackathon thinking, right? So the same thing was happening with AI, which is, and still in some pockets is happening, which is the whole world is like trying this thing, and the technology was also evolving super fast. So some things were working, some things were not working. But in the last, I would say this year especially, and probably even the second half of last year, the conversations began to shift in the industry, which is, hey, how do I go from these fancy looking demos? They look good on the demo. Like as a demo, they look great. But like, how do I actually translate that into an economic outcome, right? Which could be making something cheaper, making something better, making something faster, right? An economic outcome. And some parts of the work spectrum actually benefited faster than others. For example, I think in customer support, customer experience functions, there is more progress, Chris.
Yeah.
There is real progress happening there. But not everywhere did we see the magic yet, right? And that's because the complexity of these tasks is very different. And the amount of risk you can take is also different, right? So, AI inherently is stochastic in nature. So when things were set according to a rule and suddenly you make it probabilistic, it may not be acceptable actually.
Yeah.
And so there is a lot of angles around this problem. And that's why the industry is now, okay, let's take a pause, not a pause, but like, let's take a step back and like real focus really on use cases that have ROI, that have measured outcomes so that there is an economic outcome. Let's also take use cases where, we are going to see actually a real ability to change. And I think that is the focus I see coming in now, which is, I call it AI with ROI. Now there is a focus on AI with ROI.
Yeah.
And we can dig deeper into that for sure, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I mean, like getting real ROI, really quantifying what that means, I think has been difficult up until this point. And I think there's a lot of money spent on sort of the initial, excitement of it. But like you said, it just became, like a better way to write the same email for a lot of people, and it was a lot of money to spend for that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I think, like one of the challenges is scaling, right? I mean, at the end of the day, all of the LLMs are, the foundational models in some regard are all kind of converging. They're all kind of using the same, data sets to build their LLMs. And so now like the differentiation seems to be coming around more the agentic side of it. And which I think is really interesting because when you use LLMs, they're good at like small discrete tasks that they have good context for and they can focus on. But like imagining the bigger projects gets really challenging for them, to hold all that and figure it out. And I think that's why, we always talk about, like you said earlier, like you can build these MVPs, create cool demos really quick, but a demo is very different than like some sort of functional usable type of product. And then when when you try to scale that, I think that's where a lot of organizations struggle. Can you talk about like how scaling's working and how that can lead to better ROI or, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. I think, Chris, my view is we have to start from very clear outcomes, measured outcomes that we want. That's important. They need not be the most fancy looking things that you can showcase as a demo. They could be back office stuff that helps people, go through all the contracts. For example, we did this at my company where we are using it to go through all the contracts that are in our PDF documents and kind of make sure that we are able to study them and generate the right guidance to our sellers. It's a very back office task.
Yeah,
it's not something that you would show on a stage, but it is very useful. So focusing on measured outcomes, like, hey, in this case, the measured outcome is, am I compliant to the contract?
Yeah,
with respect to what I provisioned, how I'm servicing my customer, have I given them the value that the contract said I would, right? So the ROI needs to be clear, the outcome needs to be clear. The task may not be the most fancy task. It could be a back office thing, but that's okay. Like focus on that. Then the angle you spoke about is scale. And I think this is where I have a lot of thoughts, which is a lot of the stuff that gets demoed, and maybe it's like quick to a demo, may not have the foundations to deal with like an enterprise grade offering.
Right.
And an enterprise grade offering is one that scales to the extent of that enterprise, that business, in terms of its employees, its customers, its total business. That's important. So there is a lot of data. Second is for it to scale, the primary focus needs to be on AI-ready knowledge. Right, AI is as good as the knowledge it thrives on. Right, that agent that is making those decisions is making those decisions based on data and information that you feed it, and that feeding, like having the right enterprise context for the agents to operate at scale is so critical. It is the most critical thing. So AI ready knowledge, AI ready context. Then the last part, which I am very keen to talk about also, Chris, is um, as you evolve a system that was human plus technology to a system that is human and AI in one layer and knowledge in another layer, it's a change. It's a change in the system itself. So there is the need for humans to continue to play a role in building this system itself. And that human in the loop, which everybody talks about, but how do you implement the human AI control system is another angle for projects to see the reality of the day. And that has a bearing on accuracy, on ability to explain also, Chris. If my AI made a decision on your insurance claim or my insurance claim, I want to be able to explain why it made that decision.
Right.
So these are the angles that I am seeing coming in the way of actual deployment, actual scaling, like going from that the gap from the demos to the deployments is this, right? Knowledge, the context, the measurability of the outcome, and the system itself, the human AI system.
This episode of IT Visionaries is brought to you by Meter, the company building better networks. Businesses today are frustrated with outdated providers, rigid pricing, and fragmented tools. Meter changes that with a single integrated solution that covers everything: wired, wireless, and even cellular networking. They design the hardware, write the firmware, build the software, and manage it all so your team doesn't have to. That means you get fast, secure, and scalable connectivity without the complexity of juggling multiple providers. Thanks to Meter for sponsoring. Go to meter.com/ITV to book a demo now. That's meter.com/ITV. So you mentioned AI ready data. Could you dig into that a little bit more?
Yeah, it's so funny. I was like, look, having clean data has been the problem of the industry forever.
Right.
And it's become more important than so. Like, it's basically back to the basics in some ways, Chris. Right? Is your organization's structured data clean? Are your data pipelines working properly? Is your data high quality? Is your organization's unstructured information clean? Like, I'll give you an example. I was testing a support agent, and I asked it a simple question and gave me an answer. And it gave me 3 different ways to do the same thing because the stuff was documented 3 times differently in 3 different documents, right? Yep. So the big question is, like, AI is only as good as what you feed it. So now the thing is, how do you feed it the curated content, the right documents, the right conversations, the right videos, and how do you kind of govern the quality of that? I think that is the foundation of building good AI. Right?
Yeah.
And I think that's where we have a lot of work to do. And I think that's where the biggest bottleneck is.
It's funny you mentioned that because I find that too, that one of the challenges with AI is once it gets something wrong, it's very hard to get it to not keep doing that. Like once it's got bad data in there, it's just like, it'll resurface bad data out 100%. Of nowhere, and you're like, where is this coming from even,
Yeah.
It truly is garbage in, garbage out.
Absolutely. And I think that is, in my opinion, a big deal, big issue. And that's where I believe some of the data platforms, and obviously this could sound like a plugin for Teradata, but the point is, the experience we have had over decades delivering use cases with ROI, with data, right? Keep the AI side aside, just with data, it required us to make sure that the data product itself was of good quality. Only then we could have delivered those outcomes. So that experience now comes in handy to make the data platform, and I've expanded the definition to knowledge, and we can talk about it. The knowledge platform, making it ready for AI, and that's a big deal. That's an important part.
Well, so tell me, let's, obviously you're working with a lot of customers on AI projects and things like that. Can you like highlight an example or a use case where like you guys kind of went in and like, like identify that ROI up front, and then just really like found the great way to make AI just nail that?
Oh yeah, there are use cases, Chris, that are actively deployed. For example, I'll give you a couple of them right now.
Yeah.
A bank now is able to validate every email that its financial advisors sent to their customers and make sure that the email is compliant with SEC regulation.
Oh yeah, that'd be a good one.
Right?
Right.
That is possible because we are able to connect the customer records with all the communication that has happened with the customers, and are able to validate against the compliance and the regulations, right? Similarly, another case where they're able to take a structured like we call it customer 360. So you have all the customer data, like hey, it's Sumeet Arora, this is the customer ID, these are the products Sumeet owns, these are the transactions they did. But now we are also able to add, by the way, Sumeet had this chat conversation on our website. Sumeet did this call. Here is the call transcript. Here are the cases he logged. Here are the problems he had. All that stuff is now available, which was not. Earlier, we used to have these customer records, which were structured only. But now, and all the unstructured was somewhere else. Now, we're able to bring that together in the same system, have this 360 knowledge on a topic called customer. And therefore, now you are able to, there is a use case where a bank is driving support and customer satisfaction up. So there's a clear outcome. We are going to drive customer satisfaction up, NPS above 90, because we're going to use this 360 information. And so the implication of this, Chris, is that by the time I am I'm reaching the bank through any of its channels, the system already knows why I might be there, right? Similarly, we are also, we have use cases where we have gone from what is called a pull mechanism to a push mechanism. So pull is like when you get you get a request and you go query something and you get the analysis, right, from a platform like Teradata. But push is like Teradata itself is monitoring all the data and sending you signals. Hey, you should talk to Sumeet, right? For example, recently I got a call from the bank within like seconds of the bank declining my credit card, saying, hey, we thought that was fraudulent. Can you tell? Now that may not be AI as such, but the point is that is good customer experience, because it's asking me, hey, we thought that was a fraudulent transaction. Was it or was it not? If not, we'll remove the hold on your credit card. I like that fact that, I didn't have to find out later that my credit card is not working.
Yeah, I had a similar experience recently where we were watching the people actively steal our card while the alert was coming in.
Oh, there you go. So that's the example of like a push versus a pull system, one that is pushing signals to you, saying, hey, you better call Sumeet or you better watch out. That is the promise of this thing, the data platform part, the knowledge platform part. Of course, AI sits on top of this, right?
Well, so, I mean, you talk about, kind of, with AI rethinking systems and not just sort of the tasks. Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So imagine how, like, I'll give you an engineering example, because, I lead product and engineering. So I'll give you, right? So like my team is working on projects, right? And it's also working on customer support issues, customer requests, innovation ideas. It's like working on all sorts of stuff. Today, I have to go to my management team and say, hey, let's prioritize the next 3 months or next 6 months to really up the game on how our customers are experiencing our product, right? And then what will they do? They'll go through the backlog of all the ideas that exist, prioritize the ones that improve customer experience, put that into the roadmap, into the bucket list of things that the engineers are working on, and we work that way, right? Now, that is my interface is to my management team and leaders, and it's an outcome-oriented interface. Please optimize the engineering to improve customer experience in the next 3 to 6 months.
Right.
Now, imagine if I had AI agents doing this, then I would talk to an AI agent and say, hey, can you prioritize the tasks such that in the next 3 to 6 months, we have higher product NPS from my customer base. And by the way, I want it to go from 52 to 57. And now imagine the agent then looks at all the inputs that have come on G2, on Gartner Insights, wherever, right?
Right.
Reddit, looks at that, looks at all the inputs that have come in from the support cases, looks at all the feedback that has come in from the sales team, and says, okay, and then looks at all my Jira tickets and all the backlog, prioritizes it, says, hey, here's the work list, let's get it done, right? So it's a very outcome-oriented interface,
right,
with technology. And that is the big change compared to how we have operated in the past, right? Huge. Because in the past, we would do this in the human layer and then go to an engineer, hey, please work on this Jira ticket, right? You work on this, right?
Right.
But you could, so this is just an example of a change. I could then say next month, hey, by the way, I want you to optimize the engineering team's, prioritize the engineering team's work to give me the most revenue from existing customers in the next 12 months. That is a very different outcome than I want you to prioritize the work to give me new logos and new customers, right? So it can do that. So that is the power we're talking about, Chris. It's a very outcome-oriented interface.
Well, so let's talk a little bit more about what Teradata brings to the game as well. I mean, how does Teradata fit into that equation?
Yeah, I'm actually very excited about Teradata. I think the world is literally needs platforms like Teradata to do very well.
Yeah,
and I'll share why. First is we are the knowledge platform. Like we are the place where you can bring your curated, current, clean data, even unstructured information, videos, documents, PDFs, all together by topic, and we become the knowledge platform for AI.
Yeah,
right. So that's role number one, and we have decades of experience building the data platform, which extends to the knowledge platform. We know how to do it. There is no AI without that. So that is the role number one we play. And we are obviously investing heavily in making that easy. What I am investing in right now is how do I make it easy for Teradata to be the AI-ready knowledge platform? Making it easy for people to do that, make it ready for AI. That's one. The second piece that we are also excited about is we're also an AI platform. And the reason we do that, Chris, is because you need AI to coexist with the knowledge. It's like the decisioning system in my brain and my memory are together. It's not like I'm using knowledge in your head and making decisions here, right? It's not the case.
Right.
So it's the same thing. The brain and the memory are together, right? So the second part is having the AI platform at Teradata, and that's where we have all sorts of analytical capabilities, Chris. Which basically help you analyze the knowledge that's there. It could be SQL-based analytics for structured data. It could be vector analytics for unstructured information. You can build your RAG system there. You can give agent all the knowledge it needs to succeed. And so the AI platform has access to all of our analytics capabilities as tools. They're called tools in the world of agent,
Right.
You and I know that. And then you can build the agent right there through via our MCP server. Or if needed, you can also build agents elsewhere and access the knowledge inside of Teradata through our MCP server. You could do that if that makes more sense based on the gravity of knowledge, right?
Yeah.
For example, you and I could be working on a thing and I may be making the decision, but I consult you for some knowledge. It's almost that way, right? So we are enabling, so Teradata, think of us as that knowledge platform and then the AI platform. And the other thing that I have challenged my team, Chris, as part of the evolving vision is to make ourselves an autonomous platform, because I know you and I did not talk about it yet, but the big shift underway in the industry itself is, like you said, this is one of the biggest changes, right? We went from connected business to digital business. Now we're going to the autonomous business.
Yeah.
But that means all the technology pieces also need to be more and more autonomous. So I think Teradata itself, the whole stack is turning into an autonomous, a more intelligent, more easy to use technology stack. So that's the third pillar of the strategy.
So, I think one of the, like when you talk about like autonomous AI systems that, like some people are like, yay, and some people are like, oh my God, that's, here comes Skynet. I think there's a trust gap, right?
Yeah.
That we have to overcome. And, one of the things I see about AI that always drives me nuts is it's 100% confident in everything it does. This is going to solve your problem. You're absolutely correct. It just, it has a positivity bias, right? And so, how do you get to that point where like you can have some like sense of confidence in, or like even extracting it from the AI itself? Like how confident are you in this outcome? Like how do you get to that point where like we cross that threshold where people are just going to say, yeah, just go ahead and do it?
Yes, that is the $1 trillion question.
Yeah.
It's not $1 billion question.
I'll take my $1 billion.
I think how you build that human AI system is important, right? There is the automate, there is the augment, there is the autonomous.
Yeah.
And you kind of move through these phases, just like we did with the cars, right? There was a driver assistance to like full self-driving. There is a whole spectrum there. It's the same thing. There is levels of autonomy. So we are going through the same with these enterprise systems. We have to go through the same. Automate, augment, go autonomous. But the point is, when you design this system, if I were to give you no information, no knowledge, and say, Chris, and I don't know your background, but I'm going to guess, Chris, you are going to triage every patient that comes into the emergency room and decide. It's not going to be a good story, Chris, because you didn't do that job. You don't have the knowledge and the context, right?
Happy to give it a shot, but I don't think it's going to come out well.
But if we gave you training and say, hey, here are the books you need to read, here are some cases that have happened, here are some situations, I think your ability will improve non-linearly, right? So it's the same thing with agents. If I give you too much information, like 7 books that talk about the same thing in 7 different ways, like we discussed earlier,
cases very low probability edge cases.
Edge cases, then again, you are in trouble. So there is just the right amount of context you need to provide to AI. And I call it as modeling the knowledge itself. To create a constrained worldview for the agent, the AI agent, so that AI agent operates with more standardized definitions, operates with a worldview that is constrained so that the performance of the foundation model is more accurate, better. And the knowledge model also allows us to explain things. Because what does the knowledge model capture? It captures the information on the data. It captures the key outcomes, the KPIs, and it captures the workflows, the rules and policies that you must follow. And if we can feed agent that world in the right way, we can build better AI, more trusted AI, because things can be explained and things will be more, it's not going to cook up its own way. It's going to say, hey, there is a way that already exists. Let me just use it, because we taught the agent that. So this modeling of the knowledge in the form of data, outcomes, KPIs, and workflows is important. And that's not a fully solved problem in the industry yet, Chris.
Well, I mean,
And
do you see that? Do you
yeah.
see that as like, I mean, like I said, I mean, we've got trillion parameter data sets that we're building LLMs off of, but like, do you see it as sort of like a foundational data problem, or do you see it as kind of like a prompting and alignment issue with these systems to try and like where do you solve those problems?
Yeah, I think definitely in both those layers, right? It's a tool. You could solve it in the tools layer. You definitely have to solve it in the prompting layer. You also have to, train the models better, fine tune them better for that situation. You have to scope the agent properly, just like in humans. Like I can't do every job, so the agents are going to have these specialties, but these specialties have to be honed over these, like a worldview for that specialty that is constrained,
Right.
so that we are giving the right amount of information. There is one more angle here, Chris, which is the continued involvement of humans in auditing, correcting, and training the system.
Mm-hmm.
Right. This is the part that people forget. Like you need to literally build, because you asked me, is it a data problem? So I'll tell you what the data problem here is. I need to literally capture every prompt, every input that came to the agent, every prompt that was given, so I can actually audit it and I can train the system better. That's a data problem in itself. That's a pipeline. Right?
Yeah, that is.
For prolific agents, that's a data problem. How do you capture all that data? Where do you store it? How do you analyze it? Do humans correct it? Does AI, another agent, actually correct it? There is a lot of stuff to be done there. So there's a lot of real hardcore engineering and systems work that needs to be done to build this human AI system. That is how you cross the chasm in terms of that scaled deployment that we spoke about earlier.
Well, it's funny because I think that people have this impression that AI is just like you write a question into a prompt and you get an answer, but prompt engineering is a very complex and difficult practice. And because it's somewhat non-deterministic in how it behaves, it's very non-deterministic in how it behaves. Like it can be very very difficult to troubleshoot those kinds of things, and subtle nuances and changes in the foundational model can just like completely disrupt that whole flow, and it's not very transparent as to like what goes wrong in those kinds of situations. So like when you talk about that sort of that data pipeline of like capturing all those prompts and analyzing that, I mean, like that seems to me like a Sisyphean sort of task, honestly. Right?
No, it's definitely getting better also, Chris. I mean, I've seen it work. It's not like the system gets better. Look, any control system that has no feedback goes out of control.
Yeah.
A control system always needs feedback. And that's what the thing that I just discussed about observability and audit and training does. It gives feedback to this control system. That is important. And I think that's the role. I think that is a part that people are forgetting in all the agent implementations I am seeing right now.
Yeah, I think people oftentimes too, they're too quick to dismiss things as hallucinations when there's really an alignment issue, you know? And I think it's hard for folks to sort of disambiguate those kinds of problems.
Yeah.
And I know, like, one of the things you talk about is sort of, power to the people. Let's get everybody, like building agents and things like that. How do you overcome some of these challenges and difficulties in that area?
Yeah, I think, look, you made a good point earlier, which is prompt engineering is not that easy.
No.
It's almost, asking good questions is not that easy. So I wanted to make sure I acknowledge your point, because that's how I see it. Asking good questions is not easy. But you asked a different question, which is like, hey, Sumeet, you're asking your team to build agents, everybody to build agents. I think the world is moving so fast that we have to train. I mean, like, more than worrying about, right now, I'm not worried about the human replacement aspect of AI. I am more concerned about us working well with AI.
Yeah.
which goes back to the same point we were discussing here. This prompt engineering is not easy, or building a reliable AI system, accurate AI system, one that can be explained is not easy, right? So how do you go about that journey? If you want to leverage the power of AI in dramatically improving the productivity of your own organization or the value that your company delivers, then everyone must become at least a user of AI.
Mm.
So the way I'm approaching the people angle here, Chris, is that everyone needs to acquire skills: user of AI, builder of AI, a manager of AI, implementer of AI for customers, or a seller of AI. Like, you have to be one or more of these, ideally more of these, each
Right.
person. So in my organization, I'm encouraging every one of my team to like go agentic themselves in terms of building and using agents for their work. All of us have to do that, because only when you play with something that is fast moving, you get used to it. Like, if you, it's almost like it's moving so fast that when you're looking at it and not, if you're not in the water and it's like a fast flowing river,
Yeah.
the point has moved. So you have to be
Right.
in the river and play with it to really, know what it is.
That is so true. That's a great analogy, and it's so true because it does change so fast. And like, unless you start getting some foundation in it, it looks like a big mystery. I think people in general vastly misunderstand how AI works, and like the nature of prompt engineering. I think that because people think that like you're supplying sort of natural language prompts, that it's like, well, anybody can do that. I speak English, you speak English. We should be able to, tell this thing what to do, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, can you talk a little bit about like how that's not the way it works?
It's almost like, think of it this way. We have more connections between the neurons in our brain than the number of stars in the universe. I think that statement is most likely true. Like connections, right? So, and they're all different. They're different inside your brain. They're different inside my brain. So the language models or the foundation models is like huge neural networks. And there's lots of connections, lots of weights, biases, all that stuff that's inside of those. So you're inherently, yes, the API is a natural language API, but the reality is its behavior is as like you would react to a situation very differently than I would.
Right.
And that is what you're dealing with, right? So what do you use it for? Like, if you know that a particular task has to be done this way, and that's the best way, and let's say you know it, then you don't need to go to a language model, foundation model to say, do this task for me.
Right.
Or you can go there, but you can actually say, this is how it is done. So if you decide to do it, just do it this way, right? It's better that way, right? But if you are in a situation where there is a decision that needs to be made based on all the inputs, and if humans could process 30 things at the same time and make a decision, but this thing can process 100 things at the same time and make a decision, and maybe a better decision, then I would leverage it for that situation. So that is what we are dealing with here. I think, and I think that's why the prompt engineering piece is important, because you have to almost tell the system, hey, I want you to work this way. Otherwise, it can behave very differently. And, there is no business that thrives, innovation and business thrives on a foundation of some expected outcomes, right? Some determinism. And we can't lose that. We have to keep the determinism, but add the creativity on top of it, right?
Yeah.
That's the challenge.
Well, I don't think people understand how many prompts it takes to like get your environment right. I mean, like when I do stuff in AI, I mean, like like I've got a 200,000 token context window. I'll burn 30% of that just getting the session set up.
Yeah.
It takes a lot to get it, and once you find that secret formula, and if you do,
Yeah.
please let me know. But once you find that secret formula, you don't want to change anything because it's like it's very hard to get it aligned correctly.
Yeah. But then the model underneath changes, and you have to like
then you start
tweak it. Yeah.
and
tweak it again, right? Yeah.
And it may change every day. And that's sort of, you're in the fast moving river.
That's the fast moving river part to it, right? So unless you're playing with it, you can't play with it. You can't use it.
Yeah, well, and that's why I think, people just use it like I'm asking for directions kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they're disappointed in the outcomes. And I think that's where, when I started, we talked about sort of that divide of AI is useful, AI is worthless. I think that's kind of where it comes in.
That's fair.
Like that not understanding how it works.
How it works. And what should we do with it is also important, right?
Yeah.
That's also important.
Yeah. IT Visionaries is powered today by Meter because every great business relies on great networks. If you're a network engineer, you know how critical uptime, control, and visibility are. Too often, you're stuck troubleshooting issues across fragmented systems or locked into legacy solutions that don't scale. Meter reimagines networking from the ground up. Their full stack solution from ISP procurement to security, routing, wireless, and beyond gives you deep control and the performance you need. No more piecing together providers or worrying about bottlenecks. Just seamless, scalable connectivity built for today and tomorrow. Big thanks to Meter for sponsoring. Visit meter.com/ITV to book your demo now. That's meter.com/ITV. Well, okay, so now you're trying to get everybody to start building agents, jumping into the river, as you were saying, and one of the things I have noticed is that AI has gotten very good at starting to build agents for AI.
Yeah.
And I assume, you're not asking people to learn Python or C++ or whatever it is they're going to learn. Or, like you're giving them an AI to help generate agents to run AI, probably, right? I mean, is that sort of the process? Can you tell me how that works?
Yeah. Right now, I'm more focused on, remember, the automate, augment, autonomous, right? So I'm basically asking them to automate more and more things, augment. For example, if there is a build failure, can it triage the build failure to some extent and come back and help you with a fix for that, right? So that would be automate, augment situation. In some cases, I'm asking for autonomy as well. For example, if I have a person who's watching data movement between like two large sites, maybe an agent can watch that for you, right?
Yeah.
And and take action where it needs to take action. We recently did a beautiful case where it would take a lot of effort and time of people to estimate how to size the infrastructure needed by Teradata, for example, right? So for a given use case and the usage pattern, the number of users, the latency requirements, concurrency requirements, size of data, all those factors, humans would go through all that to tell you, hey, we believe your system should be sized this way. Mm-hmm. We put all that tacit knowledge that was in documents and people's heads, into an agent, which does the job in less than 60 seconds.
That's nice.
That is the definition of autonomous, right? And it actually does a pretty good job because we gave it the right context and the right prompt, to your point, right?
Yeah.
So there is all sorts of examples. So there is so much that happens in our workplace. It's not the sexy stuff, Chris. It's not the stuff you can always show on a demo screen in a big conference, but it has real value in saving time of people.
Yeah. Well,
it's the back office stuff.
Yeah, I want them to take the mundane tasks so I can do that, the sexy stuff.
Exactly.
Like I want to do the demo stuff.
Exactly.
Let them do all the other stuff so I can get to that, right?
Yeah. So that's what I'm asking the team to build. Every area, think about how you can use the power of augmentation or autonomy to make it better for our customers.
So here's a question for you. What do you think makes like a good AI developer? Like what are like the secret qualities? I've been asking people, like what do you think? And I've heard a wide range of things. I mean, and it's rarely computer science. honestly.
It's a good point. Look, for what it's worth, we have an AI proficiency test that we now use before we hire anyone into Teradata. And like I said, all my internal employees are also going through a learning and training. We are training them.
Yeah.
Um, if there was one word, it's curiosity.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a big
Right?
one. I hear that, too,
Yeah.
from people. And I think that's such, well, first of all, I think that's an important quality just in life in general. But, but you're right, because I think, like with AI, you have to sit there and go like, why did that happen a lot?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you're not comfortable in that space and sort of like not having a, like that deterministic answer to things, you're
Yeah.
not going to thrive, probably, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, what can this thing do? How can I do it? How can I make it better? What's the frontier? What's next? What's next? I think that curiosity is the important part here. So that's what we are looking for as well.
Well, I think there's also, somebody who can, have a systems-based approach in their thinking too. I think is another quality that I see emerging that, makes people successful as well.
Definitely. This is a big change. I mean, like,
it's huge.
If we belittle this to a chatbot or like a conversational interface alone, I think we're just not appreciating what this is. This is a complete change in the enterprise tech stack. It's a complete change in how humans work with technology. It's and it's going to take time to play out, but it will play out.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're going to hire, like I want somebody with 10 years of AI, LLM experience. It's like, that ain't going to happen.
You're not going to get them, and I don't think I have $100 million per engineer to pay either.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, you're right, because you'd be getting Sam Altman or Ilya or somebody at that point, because I don't know anybody who's been working on LLMs too much longer.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing technology. It's super interesting. I think like, and to that point, like, you talk about giving an AI competency sort of evaluation to people you're bringing on. Do you find that you like basically have to find people with kind of the right aptitude for it and then just train them? Because I mean, like, there really isn't a lot of people out there who know how to do this stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Mostly the right aptitude. I think, look, if you want to be a builder of AI itself, machine learning experience still helps, right?
Yeah.
The traditional machine learning experience still helps. I think we definitely look for those. For users of AI, for all of them, I'm looking for that curiosity thing. That's important.
Well, and there's a couple different layers there too. I mean, there's sort of the people building the underlying tools, and then there's people who are building things from those tools. Which is yet a different set of skills. And then there's people who are using those tools, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think that's kind of how we are going through this. But generally, my thing is, did you already use it to improve your daily life? And to what extent where did you reach? And of course, if you used it at work, share the stories with us. If you built a human AI system that had achieved high degree of trust, to your point, accuracy and explainability, that's very critical. That's very important. If you built a knowledge graph or a knowledge platform that was AI ready, that's super, super interesting to us.
Yeah.
So those are the types of things we are looking for, Chris.
Yeah.
But we don't want to forget the knowledge part, right? We have to look at the data and knowledge piece. That's important.
Yeah. I mean, I feel it's funny because like I said, I mean, like, we weren't using AI, even 3 years ago. And like now I don't feel like I can go a day without it. I mean, it's kind of like, when you realize that like your Google had taken over your life and you had no idea, or like you had no idea what anybody's phone number was. You had no idea how to get to anybody, any place in the world. It's like, let's Google this, and it's because I think that's kind of the new normal for a lot of people.
That's right. Absolutely.
So if people wanted to like learn more about Teradata, and where should they go and find out more about it?
Well, they can always look at our material on the websites for sure. They can talk to us. They can talk to me. I'm always happy to chat about that. They can go through the podcast that or the video cast that you and I are doing right now. They
Yeah.
can understand more, at least our thoughts. A lot of the stuff that I mentioned is based out of experience building Teradata itself.
Yeah.
But what I will say is that Teradata absolutely has the vision to be the best AI and knowledge platform for agents, and we do this without. So think of the new as this, but without losing the goodness of the old stuff, like the basics, trust, and having AI ready data, having AI ready knowledge, the ability to work with our services and consulting team to focus on real use case and real ROIs. Those are the good old things that don't go away with AI. The basics are still intact. So
Yeah.
brilliant at the basics, and then of course embracing the new. Especially, it's the right time for platforms like Teradata, Chris. Um, and I also want to say one thing which we didn't get a chance to talk about, which is that Teradata was built in an era where it was so critical to get the most juice out of like every CPU power, memory, and IO, like get the most out of that.
Yeah.
And that's especially critical in the world of agents, Chris, because you and I go to bed. Like we go to bed, we sleep. Agents don't sleep.
No.
And they're always on. And guess what? Teradata is the best and the most efficient engine. This is the economics now. Economics of using agents on Teradata is that we are really efficient. And that's a beautiful story. In fact, the bank example I gave, where the emails were being checked for compliance with SEC, was done on a Teradata platform with small language models, very efficient, very cost effective. That small language models work directly in Teradata in our massively parallel engine. So it's a beautiful engine. But yeah, we're happy to talk about it. We're happy to, there's a lot of material on the websites and all that.
Well, I think that efficiency piece is a really big one too, because I mean, what NVIDIA just hit $5 trillion.
$5 trillion.
I mean, like we went from Apple hitting $1 trillion. It's like a couple of years ago. Now all of a sudden we're at $5 trillion. I mean,
$5 trillion.
Nothing makes sense anymore.
Yeah.
But I mean, like they're getting that kind of valuation because they can't make GPUs fast enough.
Yeah.
Right. And those GPUs take a lot of power, right? I mean, and so that power's got to come from somewhere. And I don't know that we've solved for that problem. So the more efficient you can make your systems, the better off we're all going to be, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think the world will evolve. I mean, I was in networking. Networking evolved. The world of GPUs, knowledge processing will evolve. There'll be lower, lightweight processing units for inference. There will be the heavy duty stuff, fully featured. There'll be the CPU based stuff. There's a lot that's going to happen in this space to make things, just kind of have the right economics for the right use. And I think that's also coming. That's coming.
There's been a lot of discussion about the concept that, basically training is kind of gone. And like now we're all into the inferencing era. But, when I look at the market, I like LLMs, I can see we kind of cap that out. Certainly that data is constantly changing. New data has to be, added in and things like that. But then you take a look at like AI having physical presence in the world with, robotics and things like that, or just even, cars, which are robots of, a flavor. And, you look at like all that visual training data that we got to go through, and I don't even feel like we scratched the surface of that. And then you add in all the synthetic visual training data, and that data is going to be, large.
Huge.
Right. So like, I'm not sure that the golden era of, training is entirely gone like everybody's kind of saying it is, right?
I don't think so either. I mean, look, sometimes people confuse the magnitude with the growth rate. Yes, there will be slower improvements because of the improvements we already made, but this is going to go on for decades, the improvements. And I think there's a lot more training to be done. facial, video, all that stuff that you mentioned are super. Like we've only barely scratched the surface there,
barely.
and
Yeah.
so yeah, it's a lot that still needs to play out.
Well, I think we proved the utility of language models. Now that's going to start extending into other areas, and that's going to be a whole nother thing.
Whole
too.
thing,
Yeah.
thing, and there's a large swath of sectors that are not yet touched. Right. It's not like there is so much more to be done,
Yeah.
and there's going to be training specific to those sectors, those industries, those use cases. And we don't know all the extent, but I mean, space, defense, agriculture. I mean, there is so much that needs to be done.
Yeah, we just got to make these models efficient enough that they can run on the edge, right?
Yeah, I think that'll happen, Chris. It's already being discussed. I mean, by the way, even we as a data and AI platform get requests for the edge. We do.
Yeah.
It's already underway. And like you said, robots and I mean, this has just begun, started.
Just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
I'm going to go lay down now. Well, hey, Sumeet, thanks for just a great conversation. Really, really fun talking to you. Really appreciate you being on. Thanks so much.
Oh, Chris, it's been a pleasure. And you asked super great questions. I learned a lot as well. It's just been great chatting with you, Chris.